Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to Natural Nonsense, the first podcast episode of 2023. And we're actually recording this on New Year's Day, January 1st. So getting the energy started nicely on New Year's Day. Andre, the first human I've spoke to in 2023. How does it feel?
Wow, I'm honored. I know I won't be the last.
You will not be the last at all.
We here. Welcome y'all. Happy New Year. Gonna bring it in strong, natural nonsense. We got something to talk, got some stuff to talk about today, but it's just wild to be in a new year, man. Wild to be
It
in a
is.
new year.
And 2023 out of all years, like 23. Like, just think, we were born in the 1900s.
I know. My little brother had told that to me one time, and then that was one of the first times I was like, I'm not old, am I? Because why did you say the 1900s like that? Like, whoa, whoa.
But he's not wrong. The 1900s. Like we're no longer in the 1900s.
We are not. We are far from that. So
I remember one time I was watching this video on YouTube and they had like kids reacting to like old technology and they're like, "Oh, like this came out in 1976." And the kid was like, "Oh, weren't there dinosaurs back then?"
whoa,
Blame though.
whoa. That's wild.
It's natural nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
But very happy to just be back on the podcast. Cam hit us with a very unique voice memo. I had to listen to it to make sure I played the right one, but I'm very interested in hearing Andre's thoughts on this voice memo. I think that it should be very, very engaging. So turning it over to Cam real quick to get this episode started.
Hey, congrats to the Nat Nonsense podcast. Y'all really killing it out here. Super proud, super inspired by y'all. Keep doing y'all thing. It's only going to keep going up. Quick challenge, though, to my fellow supporters. Let me hear some of y'all get on these voice memos. How y'all really feeling about these podcasts? How y'all really engaging with this content? Let me hear what you got to say. Because I know y'all probably tired of hearing my voice. I ain't, so I'm going to keep showing up. But until then, I don't know. Y'all support. Kind of sounded like a lot of hoopla.
He said, "Not me."
Nah, he said we all know what the hoopla is, you know what I'm saying? But that was funny though. I wasn't expecting him to end it with the hoopla though. But yeah, I do wanna hear y'all's thoughts, like, voice memos, comments, whatever. I think it just like it adds to it being fun. So, you know, just pop in, say what you gotta say about some animal shit.
Yeah, and maybe that could be a New Year's resolution for some of y'all. Like, I know that sometimes it's intimidating to like record your voice and have it be played for God knows who. Like, put yourself out there as a quick 10 seconds to a minute. Just get your take off, or just say something. It could just be like, "Hey, Andre." That could be a voice memo. Just get a just get a little engagement up there. We deserve some hellos on top of the nonsense, I think.
Yeah, we doing. I think so. I think so. But yeah, I'd love to hear more of that because I feel like it just adds like a more communal aspect to it. Because like me and Kyler do just be talking, and this would be what we would talk about. Like if we was kicking it, like we would probably be this. These are our conversations. So for us, it's like the point. A lot of times is like, dang, what if other people had heard this? You know what I'm saying? So it's always good to hear from other folks too.
Yeah, always good to hear from other folks. And let's say, hey, this is my first time ever tuning into Natural Nonsense, and I don't know how to leave a voice memo. All you have to do, and really, I actually just found this out last week, you don't even have to leave the episode. It's in the episode description. There's a link to submit a voice memo. So you can do it that way, or you can follow us at Nat Nonsense Pod, click the link in the bio, leave a voice memo. We got options for y'all. And I'm just really interested in hearing more from some of our folks. The last episode we had the disaster movie draft. I think Andre, you got the most votes on the page. Cameron actually left us another voice memo too with his thought on that, but it's a little hard to hear. But he says Snakes on a Plane is the top disaster movie of all time because that is a disaster.
Nah, Snakes on the Plane is a disaster. I mean, yeah, that movie is a total disaster in a lot of ways. But yeah.
Because can you imagine you, especially man, all the
And
people
I
who
be
had the
going to sleep
Southwest
on the plane.
cancellations?
Hey, that was wild. It was they canceled like every flight. Like I basically
But
I
what if they
think no,
told
it
you
was
they
like
canceled because of
80%.
snakes? What if they said they canceled because of snakes
Oh,
on the
I'll
plane?
be cool with it. I would be cool with it. I would be cool with it. Yeah, thanks for letting me know before I got in the air because I'll be going to sleep on the plane. I know it's kind of frowned upon, but I go to sleep, bro. I don't got no what. I'm not paying $30 for Wi-Fi. That barely works. Is ain't like it's booming. And then I kind of get tired of watching movies. I watch movies. I'm gonna just ride this out. Let me just ride out this couple hours on the plane. But them snakes would get me quickly because I would not be aware. They would just sneak up. Maybe they leave me alone because I wouldn't be moving though. So, but then everybody else would be screaming. So there you go.
Yeah, I think there would be way too much chaos for them to just leave you alone. But I
Yeah,
always admire people who can fall asleep on the plane. It has to be a red eye, and I have to be dead tired in order for me to knock out. I can't just go to sleep on no flight.
I did luck out because I'm pretty short. I will say that I lucked
That
out on that end.
that is true. That
That's a
is very
that's a
true.
that's a big reason why. Because those seats are made for me. If I'm being honest, those are not made for actually like no, bro. Like one of my homies is 6'8" and he be taking like regular commercial flights, and I'm just like, bro, I couldn't imagine living your life on a plane, bro. I see why you don't fly places like that.
Yeah, it's hard to fall asleep when your knees in the chair in front of you, your shoulder getting brushed against by everybody passing up next to you. It's rough out here. So, yeah, I'm not a sleeper. I don't like watching movies on planes like that because, like you said, I watch movies all the time anyway. I usually like try to write or listen to a podcast, play games on the phone or something. I recently learned that people really be like paying to like text people on a plane. No, I cherish throwing my phone on airplane mode and not, hey y'all, I'm on a 6 hour flight. I'll talk to y'all later.
Me too. Oh man. Hey, I be turning my airplane on, come back, zero messages. I'll be
Yep.
like, nice. Oh man.
That's hilarious. But yeah, man. See, this is why voicemails are important because you just start the podcast off with just general conversation. We wasn't planning on talking about no flights and falling asleep on planes and all that. So yeah, hit that link in the bio. But 1K, why don't you start us off with the icebreaker question, the first one of 2023?
Yeah, so I was just thinking like, there's different, New Year's resolutions and people kind of, they're kind of Scrooge about New Year's resolutions. If they're not Scrooge about Christmas, I think there's a healthy amount of Scrooge that people kind of should have for Christmas personally. But when it comes to New Year's, people are a lot more acceptedly like, which there's no reason to make a like resolutions are you know they're important, and I think if it's something that somebody's gonna stick to, they're gonna stick to it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But since this is natural nonsense, I was just thinking like, man, what's an animal quality that we'd want to kind of evoke for the next 365? You know what I'm saying? For the 2023, what type of animal quality? And what I thought of first, like I was gonna go to like some real like, I was like, what's the most vicious animal I could think of? I was over here thinking of like tigers and all type of stuff. But what settled on my spirit was a beaver, the discipline.
Mm,
I
damn.
want to have the I'm not, I swear I'm corny, but yo, you're a cornball too. He said, damn. Oh my gosh. Nah, but I'm just saying, like, I think I want to have the discipline of a beaver because do you know, imagine how much discipline you got to have to individually, with your teeth, bring sticks to a secluded random part of a stream or river and just keep adding sticks one by one for the sole purpose of eventually making this a home.
Mm, I
And
like
then you
that.
just in there chilling. They be in there chilling, dry, warm. And so I think I just want to evoke that discipline of like, what does it look like to add that stick, like, every single day and
Mm,
just see what happens at the end of that. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that I wanna definitely take forward.
that's amazing. I feel like I started with the corny ass damn joke, but I peeped the vision. I like that choice of a beaver. But I think I owe the folks listening to this a solid. I need to ask a couple questions about your dam. So let's do MTV dams right now. Like what's going on in Andre's
Mhm.
River Dam?
Okay, MTV dams. Okay, when we come to we set it up like pods with a centralized living room, basically. So we can access all the living room, but everybody's pods is separately secluded. But it comes into that central space. In the pods, you know what I'm saying? You got your little, optional window. We don't usually condone windows because that just invites, predators in. But we will add it for, the pizzazz if we need some airflow. We can
Mm,
strategically add a window there. Um, Definitely gotta have, you know, some storage for the sticks. You know what I'm saying? You gotta build that into the walls. You can't just have them out everywhere,
that's
and
true.
then. So I think the main thing would be that in my MTV dams, I just make sure that everybody had their little space, but everybody could come together in the middle.
I rock with that. MTV Dams brought to you by Natural Nonsense Podcast. So I spent a lot of time thinking of this, and by a lot of time I mean like 5 to 10 minutes since we came up with the question. But I was doing some digging out and thinking about what type of animal I wanted to embody for the year. And I wanted to pick an animal that was like clever or curious. So originally I was going to go with a fox because I feel like that was a good pick. But then I stumbled across a crow because crows are surprisingly very, I guess not surprisingly necessarily, but I don't think a lot of people just have the offhand knowledge of how intelligent crows are and just how well they can use like miscellaneous tools to accomplish tasks. Like you can look up YouTube videos of crows like trying to get a reward tree using like very complex tasks. So the reason I chose a crow is because I feel like this year, especially just with the abundance of new time I have not being a master's student anymore, I have access to a lot more time to really grow and blossom those creative adventures and ventures that have in the back of my head. Like, so I'm thinking of like books that I've purchased over the last year that honestly just didn't feel like reading because I was having to read for class and whatnot. But being able to use those books as tools and the different things I've purchased, like kind of what I like to say, like punting the ball forward of like, okay, I might not be able to learn how to be a screenwriter today, but I know whenever I want to become a screenwriter, I'm gonna need to read this book. So let me buy this book while I have the money now. And so I think I've set myself up to have this period of time to be able to use these different tools and see what comes out of it. So I think just the curiosity of a crow and the ability to use multiple unorthodox tools to accomplish a goal, like I think that's what was rocking with me this morning.
Nah, I see the vision because, like, you know, I think the rave or crows they have like the same intelligence of like a 6-year-old, something like
Something like
that.
that.
And for the folks that don't know, they're one of the most close relatives to dinosaurs. So there's a lot of intelligence there. So I see that part, and then I'm just happy to hear that you're gonna have like more space to get your crow on. You know what I'm saying? I'm excited to see because I know you have a plethora of ideas that you pulled off even while you was the master student. So I
Yeah.
think it just shows the potential for the future.
And just to go a little bit further into the crows, so it's actually one study compared their reasoning power to that of a 7-year-old child,
Um,
which it's a lot. Like 7-year-olds, they have a lot of reasoning power, I feel, at that age. They also play games and tricks on one another. They identify people and animals who might pose a threat and understand analogies. So, learning a lot about crows on this episode of Nat Nonsense Podcast.
yeah, crows are real. I mean, when it comes to the food chain, we better be lucky they're small because they would they would take over. Um, but yeah, let's get on to these topics, man.
Yeah,
We
let's
kind of
go ahead and
go ahead.
no, I was going to liaison us into that. Like, let's go ahead and get into these topics, hoping that the podcast is entertaining for folks. I don't want anybody to be yawning while they're listening to this part of the podcast. But in case you let out a yawn at the mention of yawn, the first topic that we have is why do we yawn? And I'm with
Yeah.
Dr. 1K.
Nah, I'm not all that. But nah, so I've always like I first learned this whenever I don't know, at the book fair they had a children's almanac or a kids almanac, and I just thought it was the most. I feel like an almanac is a description of my knowledge, I would say, because it's just a bunch of stuff that's like randomly applicable. One of the things I learned in the almanac was like the way that we sleep. It kind of says something about like our personalities a little bit. Like, so some people that can sleep on their back, some people that sleep on their stomach, or they like it all kind of says a little bit. Um, but almanacs traditionally are used by farmers to know like seasonal trends and stuff. So
Mhm.
like it'll have like info about like what to do in a frost and when is the expected time for the frost and stuff like that. But one of the things that they have put in there is like, why we yawn as a group. Like, why do people catch a yawn? And like, I've always wondered that too, because I'll yawn even if I'm not tired. Like, if somebody like start yawning, like I'll just yawn with them, and I'm like, "Dang, you send me your yawn." And I never really understood why, but basically the reason why is because they looked at human behavior and it was a part of our like evolving as humans, and so it was a way to have like group connectedness for survival. So if people is in tune with each other and they making eye contact with each other, like the yawn is like a communication point. So like yes, it's like, oh, we're tired, but the fact that it travels on to person, it comes out in that traveled yawn, but it also comes out in other ways. Like, so if let's say we all trying to keep, everybody safe, or we're on watch for something, we're gonna have similar reactions to similar stimuli. So if we hear a twig snap, all of our heads are gonna all kind of go to the same direction at the same time. Nobody's gonna turn around and look behind them. You know what I'm saying? But that helps with the survival. And so I think the next time you in a group and people passing a yawn around, I think it just points back at the fact that we're human beings and we're animals. We are creatures. Like, we're not just robotic code that you can code to, you know, like make do what it do. Some of these things are just a part of our nature as human beings. And I feel like it's one of those topics that is really important for us to embrace, because then it makes it easier to understand how communities actually come together and what does that mean.
Mhm.
Like, so in order for you to pass a yawn, where are you setting yourself up to pass a yawn at? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I think it is different with masks and COVID and
Yeah.
all this stuff. But um but yeah, I think that's the main thing. But yeah, we yawn because it was a way for us to survive, to communicate with each other.
Yeah, and I even would take it a step further than that because I'm gonna start it with more of a facetious thing that it came to mind. But remember, like first, second year of college, you see somebody yawn at the BRC. It's like, dang, he tired. Like that was in the oh, I don't get tired. Like people are just afraid to take a nap. You take a nap, you on somebody's Snapchat on a slump cam. But it just reminds us of just that, like, yeah, like people be tired. Like, and that's a very human thing too. Like, especially I feel like if you know that someone's been working like a hella hours and they chilling at the crib, it's 7 p.m. They yawning like 5 times back to back. It's like, bro, like go ahead, go get you some sleep, man. I know you tired. Like I know what that's like to be tired. And I think sometimes I see people yawning, check in with myself, like, damn, am I tired? Like I start yawning. And like you said, sometimes you yawn after seeing somebody yawn. It's like, damn, I ain't even tired. But then it's like, when is the last time I took a nap? When is the last time that I intentionally took a breath? I think all of those are very human things, and just something as simple as like seeing if somebody's rested. Like, of course, every time somebody yawn, they're not necessarily tired, but just that reminder to check in with those human needs as well is what it made me think of.
Yeah, because no matter how much TikTok comes out with a new TikTok trend, people always gonna yawn together.
Words of
And,
wisdom.
and I'm just saying, so like I think just getting grounded with that and being like, yo, like what does that mean in a lot of different ways? I think it just opens up more opportunity to connect and not just connecting off of like predetermined ways. Like you have to do this or you have to do that, but just using our imagination. You know what I'm saying? But yeah,
Yeah. Got me tired thinking about yawning now. Like, I feel like I'm mentally fighting the yawn as I'm recording. I'm like, you can't get the yawn going on a podcast. It's gonna take too long to record.
for real, it will. But yeah, I think this kind of goes into like, another side to the yawn is like kind of how people bond and how it comes up like through trauma and stuff. And I think that's something that really connects on the, I guess, on the yin and yang, I would say,
Hmm.
of how it can it can be a source of another type of bond. But I'm gonna pass it off to you so you can kind of like talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah. So the reason I brought this up, because I'll speak for myself. I mean, I ain't got nobody else to speak for. But I didn't even hear about the concept of like trauma bonding until, I don't know, it was later in my college years. And I think someone mentioned like, yeah, like most of the friends that you connect with in college, it's like trauma bonding because you're going through the shared trauma together and you're like trauma dumping on people. And that forms the basis of a lot of unhealthy relationships. And so I think that it caused me to think back on some of those like late nights in college where what I saw as like connecting with people, like some people could see as like trauma bonding from an outside perspective. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I think that is healthy for us as humans in a disconnected but really connected society. Like, we're disconnected from each other more than ever because of the pandemic, but at the same time it's so easy to connect with people through like social media and the internet with the technology that we have. And I think that in college, when came down to connecting with people, like, college is this very important time in your life. You last like on average, let's say 4 years for most people in undergrad. That's not a lot of time to get to know people. And I feel like you have very intense conversations with people quickly when you're trying to connect with them, trying to get to know people on a deeper level. And I'm a person who values like getting to know people beneath the surface of who they are. Like, I really want to know like more about these people. So I feel like it was very easy for me in college to build relationships with people just by like really taking time to get to know, like, nah, like, who are you, like, why are you this way, like, what are the steps that took you to being very young 1995 Andre
Right,
1K to Andre
right,
1K of today. And I think naturally through those conversations a lot of traumatic stuff can come up if you are talking and bonding with people that you have an investment in. And so I feel like there is a balance between sharing too much or sharing too much right away and that only being the foundation of a relationship. But I think what is important for me and what has worked a lot for me is just remembering that trauma isn't the only pillar of a relationship. Like, we were having these shared experiences, sharing like traumatic things that might happen in life. But at the same time, we also talking about sports. We also talking about music. We also going to
right.
turn up together and making sure that your relationships are going far beyond just like the quote unquote bad times or like the dark past that people might have. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the idea of trauma bonding, and especially looking back at like collegiate experiences and getting to know people in that short time frame?
I would say like it just comes down to like balance. I would say because I feel like I definitely before I learned and got more knowledge and was like, dang, like it's not really the healthiest thing to be doing. Without the balance, I would say like if it's like out of balance of um like just the regular parts to the day and just kicking it and stuff, then it just kind of makes it harder to um it makes it harder for it to be something that you really trying to like have be for a longer period of time. I think for me, um, the thing about the trauma bonding thing that I think almost gets forgotten is that it wasn't it's not like people kind of like all decided to have all these horrible things happen to them while they were all very close and lived within feet of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the other side to it that I want to make sure people realize is that like we aren't in control of that. Like those things happen and they needed to be discussed. Like, you know what I'm saying? It needed to be, maybe that's how it was got out. Cause I think, you know, it's so we're in this time where it's like you gotta say the right thing, say the right thing, say it at the right time. And it's creating very robotic kind of responses to things that are terrible. Like I can't expect somebody to go through a very traumatic thing and then give me the perfect response as a result. Like, and I think some people got to that level where it got out of
Mm-hmm.
balance to where it's like, oh, well, they're, oh, this is definition of trauma bonding. So, the wrong. And then didn't take into account maybe the whole 90% rest of the whole experience with that
Yeah.
person. And so I think that's just the other side to it. I think, how does that balance out? Like you said, like, are we kicking it? Are we just, you know, like we going to do different things together? Like we have memories and experiences that aren't just filled with what happened, that was bad. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's where, in retrospect, I think I know I didn't have the tools at the time to truly navigate that properly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So um I know that impacted like, a lot of different just situations with people, but it's not, I won't put the blame, or it's not like out of shame, but it's just more out of like that's real though. Like it did
Yeah.
impact.
No, I hear you on that. And I think you mentioned or used the word robotic, like when it comes to some of these responses and the language that we're using, because I think one of the things that was so bittersweet about just learning about how to, for our umbrella term, be there for a person. Like we're both counselors for Summer Bridge. And in that Summer Bridge training, we learned a lot about like one-to-one mentorship and whatnot. And I feel like, speaking from my perspective, of course, some people take the tools to mentoring and one-to-one for a person and they just cut and paste it onto every single situation. So something happens to a person, they ask these very like scripted questions. And I feel like that type of robotic way of showing up for someone too can impact how much people share or your relationship with people. Because if every time I talk to you, it's always the same, like, oh, what did happen? How did this make you feel? What does this look like for you? Yada, yada, yada. It's like, yes, I understand that those are like tools that folks use to get people to kind of process and walk through things. But at the same time, I think it's important for us understanding just human nature and just how we naturally respond to traumatic events or how we naturally connect with people, that sometimes a person's not going to have, like you said, this, they're not going to have the exact language that they need to use or should use to discuss something that happened to them. Maybe they genuinely don't know how they feel about a situation. Sometimes people just need like space to vent, or they just need someone to pull up on them. I think all those are different things that play a role in connecting with people, especially when it comes to like responses to tragic events. Like, and I just keep thinking back at this last couple of years of the pandemic, with how much we not joke about it, we mentioned on the podcast a lot, like the ocean was on fire. Like that's one thing that happened over the
Yes.
last couple of years. We're coming up on a couple year anniversary of the Capitol riot and all that was. These are just a lot of things that were happening. And it's like, looking back on where you were January 6th a couple years ago, and if someone's like, oh, how did that make you feel? Like, yo, I don't even know what's going on.
For real. And sometimes when people don't it's better to, but I think that's just where the like, I'm learning too, is just like having boundaries, and not having boundaries be rules, but have
Mm-hmm.
boundaries be like what you doing for yourself, like what you're telling yourself what you will and will not do, but not prescribing that onto another person. Like, so if I'm not in the mood or I'm not in the space to hear someone vent, then it's on me to be like, hey, I'm not in a space to hear someone vent.
Yeah.
Can we possibly talk about this in like an hour? If not, I just kind of need some space to like kind of prepare for that because XYZ. That's just I ain't just being real. Like I
Yeah.
ain't in space for that. But you don't have to then be like, okay, let the person vent or whatever, and then on the back end be like, oh, they're trauma spilling, and it's like, well, dang, you let them do it for an hour and a half. Like, I mean, at a certain point, like I think there's a responsibility where it's cool to identify things, but applying it kind of takes that next step of like, all right,
Mm.
like how does this actually fit for this situation? If I let somebody talk and vent for 2 hours, it's gonna feel shitty if after the 2 hours you wait till then to be like, I really didn't want to hear everything you had to say. I just sat
It's
here
like, well,
like, okay.
dang.
It's like, well, dang, like why? Like, cause then it's just like, why? Cause you know, and I think that's really what I mean. Like, yes, there's these nuanced things, and I think maybe that is the thing, just making sure to remember nuance. Because once you start being very like this or that, it just doesn't ever effectually work because what my mama gonna call me and be like, you trauma spilling right now. Like, I mean, I could and be valid in that. However, I feel like, hey, mom, last week when you kind of called, like I kind of can we maybe like, but that's kind of maybe how I would do it. But I'm just not about to just be like, no, your trauma spilling while like as she's trying to just talk about something that happened. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because most of my mom's conversations we not talking about stuff like that. But I think that's what the thing is making sure that these are kind of in balance with everything else.
Yeah, balance, nuance, those are both very important. And I think bringing up like family and older generations is another point that I didn't necessarily plan on talking about today, but since we brought it up, I think that it's also important just to realize just how much happens over a span of time. Like when you think of like when our parents grew up, when our grandparents grew up, and the learning and unlearning that had to take place throughout their lives, what spaces that they have to talk about these things, like what tools were available to them. Because look, in 2023, you can get a therapy appointment in like 5 minutes digitally. It might not be like your preferred therapist, but there's like things like BetterHelp where you can do like digital therapy.
There's
There's YouTube,
access, like
there's access, there's YouTube videos, there's TikToks. There's so many ways for us to have access to a lot of this information. Whereas years and years ago, like
you had to be in the library, G.
you had to go get that encyclopedia and look up the T book, see what's under trauma, and hope that it's even in there. Like there's these different environments that our parents and older generations grew up in, to where it's like, yeah, like my grandma wasn't in class with me when I learned about this ism or learned about this trauma response. She's just on the phone with her grandbaby. Am I really about to be like, you're trauma dumping grandma? Like, no, like, but there's healthy ways that you can build those relationships with your loved ones. And like you said, maybe it's after the conversation, like, hey, I just want to share how I'm feeling today, or like, can we next time before we get into like what's going on, can we take like 2 minutes to check in real quick? Or maybe I just want to hear about like what you have for dinner last night. Just something like to set those healthy boundaries with the people you love, because I think that that's sometimes the most difficult thing for people. I know it's a difficult part of the learning experience for me. Well, just learning, okay, all these theories sound great. How do I apply that in my house? How do I apply that to my family? How do I apply that to my experiences growing up? So I think that the more that we have these conversations, the more that we talk about experiences, healing, connecting, sharing, and growing through like traumatic things that have happened in our life, or hey, just stuff that pissed you off or made you sad. Like, I think that some of these responses doesn't have to go all the way to like past trauma, but maybe you just was having a shitty day and you was just somebody really had you fucked up in that moment and you just needed that space to be angry. I think that's all valid and important.
Yeah, because I think we don't nearly express our emotions nearly as much as they actually come up. I would say, our as a culture and as a people, like if you looking at the what is it, the seven basic emotions? There's
Mm-hmm.
anger, fear, um, sad,
Happy, I
happy,
think hurt,
hurt, and
love.
is it jealousy or
Y'all can look it up.
disgust? Disgust. It's disgust or something like that. But like no one will go through their day. Like if somebody, oh, how was your day? We all given the kind of greater value brand version of the day. Depend, like, you know what I'm saying? But it really could be like, man, I stubbed my toe getting on the trolley this morning. It made me really mad. And then I got sad because I scuffed my shoes. And then like, but people don't, I don't do that. But I
Mm-mm.
know that it's not because everybody's not always not meaning that when they say, how are you doing? But I think that's also like, again, like another part of, the next step. Like, do you really mean that? Or do you just want to know like you can ask that before you start talking, you know what I'm saying? But I just think the more that we communicate about how we have natural reactions to stuff, it just will get to a more progressive conversation that's on a person to person basis. Because I think people think there needs to be this universal response. And there's 7 billion people. That doesn't make sense. Why does there need to be a universal response? Just talk to the what works for that person and you, and that's what worked. Then that's the best response. Like, that's the best response. I mean, it doesn't matter what me or Kyler think. Honestly,
Not
like
at all.
like it doesn't matter what an expert thinks. It matters what works. Like, honestly, and
Nah, that's
it shouldn't have to be a universal like every this is what you're supposed to do in this situation. Like so, like
yeah, that's why I specialize in the wrap all that up in it. But that's for me though. That's
that's
what
just what
I'm
I
doing.
was. That's what I think.
That worked for me when I did it. Maybe it can work for you, but that was for me though.
And I always add in this worked for me. You might want to figure out what your version of this is. Don't this worked for me. Like I'm not, but I think it's harder to stand out on your 10 toes out on that limb when it's just like I just think this. I don't care if this is what you're supposed to do. This is what I think is working for me. It's harder to do that than to be like, well, studies show. Because I'm
Thirty-two
like
percent of adults.
and I'm like that. And some things like controversial take. I don't think washing chicken is. I don't think that's something that's worth the squeeze of what actually be happening when you wash chicken. Like there's certain things that like just will die in hot grease or in a 450-degree oven that I'm cool with not splattering the chicken all over my scene. And then people say, oh, well, I always bleach every single time after. That's my point. That's my point. Why do you even need to bleach everything after? Because you got chicken everywhere. But that's a side tangent. But that's just something that I will stand on. And if people, and I know it's controversial because people got all their thoughts about it. But hey, it fries out. It burns out, bro. I'm not cooking no chicken underdone. Like we're not doing that. So I choose to go with science on some things. But
I didn't think we was
hey,
gonna get to the chicken debates on a podcast, but no, I'm right there with you. Because that's why I got me a meat thermometer. I know exactly what temperature I'm cooking
boom.
my meat to.
Boom. We're not guessing, and it's not no time. Like, no, I can take the meat thermometer and it says the right degrees. Cool.
Yeah, because like we on a little bit of tangent, but this natural nonsense of a podcast. That's why I really hate part of the technology and social media thing, because everybody has the DIY hacks or the this is the way this is supposed to be done. And did you know that you're actually supposed to take a lemon, take it outside, roll it on the ground, and then bring it inside and put it in the freezer for an hour? It's like, nah, y'all cap it. Y'all not doing all this. This isn't a life hack.
Bro, I found out about the fruit wash thing. It was something with fruit where people were surprised that microorganisms lived on the fruit that came from the store. My whole life, I just just thought people just knew it came from the ground. I don't know. But anyway, this came out, and then people was doing like, okay, with strawberries, you gotta soak them in this for a certain amount of hours. I'm like, fam, do you know what fruit spray is? You spray the fruit with this spray, and it washes the plant on the outside.
I got a fruit and vegetable wash right here from Sprouts Farmers Market, actually.
It literally washes the fruit. You rinse it off, scrub it real good, and your fruit is clean now. Why are we soaking strawberries and it's to let the microorganism come out? What are we doing all that for? That's not even real. That's not real, bro.
It's not. And I think that that's what college exposes you to a lot too, is just like, hey, people grow up differently. People had different like values when it comes to food.
Putting hot
People
sauce in the refrigerator, all type of stuff.
you just calling out everybody this podcast episode.
Saying, man, it's
But
nonsense.
my thing is I went to school where, hey, some people on the playground was like, hey, God made dirt, dirt don't hurt. That's some people's life philosophy. They're not soaking their strawberries for an hour before eating the strawberries.
Because like there is certain situations like because have you ever been to a strawberry patch?
I have not been to a strawberry patch.
Okay, so at a strawberry patch, you basically get to pick your strawberries. Like they give you a basket, and then basically however much you fill up the basket with, you kind of. Now that I'm saying this, I have some country experiences. I done been to an orchard and a strawberry patch, and these were one of the two defining days of my life. I'll talk about it so much because it's just so important. But anyway, I went with my papa, and he was just like, you can pick all the ones you want, but make sure you don't eat them. We gotta make sure we wash them when we come back because it's either the pesticide or it was something they was using like growing the strawberries to keep plants and I mean bugs and other stuff away from it that we would get sick if we ate it. So
Mm-hmm.
like there is a line with the dirt don't hurt thing, but like
Yeah.
that comes with experience though. Like you we didn't get this far surviving based in later. There was a whole up until 100 years ago. Well, what 130 years ago maybe, where they first learned about germs. We was going that long without knowing about germs the whole time. I think we're good, bro. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Hey, you're not wrong at all. Um, and the strawberry patch thing, that's not the countryest thing you've ever talked about, because I've seen like strawberry patches. They just on the side of the highway when I'm going to somewhere. So it's like I'm not about to stop at this little strawberry field to pick some strawberries. I need to get to LA before the traffic hit. I definitely have known people that have gone to, but maybe it's not gonna be on my bucket list. I'm not even gonna cap and lie to y'all on this podcast. I don't even like strawberries like that, but that's for another hot take episode.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I was gonna throw why not? We talked about voice memos on this podcast. So let us know your hot take when it comes to food or a DIY that gets annoying. Trying to give y'all some more prompts and stuff to leave voice memos with to make it a little easier. So whether it's a TikTok hack where you're like, yo, y'all are doing the absolute most, or just whatever's on your mind. Cause man, those food hacks, they be doing the most sometimes. Like, here's a better way to crack an egg. It's like, yo, why did this take 10 minutes? The side of the counter was working.
Man, the hard boiled egg ones be OD too. Like it'd be like, okay, if you really want to hard boil the egg, you get a sous vide and then you put it in the bag and then you make sure the sous vide set up at the right temp. Bro, I can get some water, a pot, and a lid.
Set.
Wow, there we go. Eggs in there, salt in the water, and we're done in about 15 minutes. G, what are we doing? What are we doing? And the same thing with cars. The little hack. That's the biggest thing that they want to hack is a car. Oh, instead of letting you turn the dial for the air, you got a touch screen. Yeah. So now, while you're driving, you need to be able to click on this, and then you might turn the radio. Like some things worked fine before you tried to put all the technology in it. Now people with Teslas can't even start their car when it get too cold. And by start, I mean unlock. Can't unlock the car because it got too cold. Like, come on, bro. Y'all doing too much with the technology. You can't get into it. Like, and then it shut down so much. Usually you can put a car in neutral. You can't even put a Tesla in neutral when it's not on. Like, that is insane, bro. But man, it's just wild. Some things just need to be what they are.
Some things just need to be what they are. I'm gonna bring us a little bit out of the rabbit hole that we're in because man, we deep in there. We it's a lot of rabbits around here. But kind of tying up this conversation, I wanted to talk about spaces where people either can go to feel connected or to facilitate some of that healing or just to empathize with other people. Like we talked about like spaces where we would share like about like life stories and stuff and you get to know like people's journeys. One of the places that came to mind that kind of inspired this last segment is just thinking about open mics in a general sense. Many of the listeners know I started an open mic at UC San Diego called Flex My Expression. I had already been writing poetry for like 4 years at the time, but I was like, hey, if one, I was just like, we got to do this for my job. So like, I'm trying to do some fun stuff. But Camry and I was like, oh, like we could do an open mic and I'll share a poem. I'm doing open mic. And then just being able to put together an open mic and seeing people get up there, share stuff they've never shared before, or just expressing a part of themselves that they never expressed before. I think that there's a lot of power in that. And following doing Flex My Expression, I started going to open mics, like especially like 2015 to 2017. Carla was at open mics weekly, like just always at the open mic, performing, listening, connecting with people, meeting people, building that network out. And the reason I would go so much is just because there's so much beauty and seeing people share their stories, and it could be something really like deep that happened to them or something very emotional, and then after they perform someone going up to them and like, hey, like I needed to hear that, like I'm going through something very similar, this touched me, or I read this poem that you wrote and this helped me get through something, or I never could find the words to explain that feeling. And I think those types of moments are what I really value in an open mic space. And I think that's also going back to like the college conversations, why I really valued like going beyond the icebreaker. Like, yeah, like if you were a bag of chips, like you would be Frito Lay's because you like Fritos. Like, yeah, like cool. But like,
I used
I
to
don't
be
know.
so bothered when
I
people
know.
messed
I
that
know.
up.
I know that's why I brought it up. But nah, like I really want to know. That's why I loved when you have those questions, because it's like, oh, you like you think that you be honey barbecue Frito twist because you feel like your life has had a lot of twists and turns. Like, yeah, I learned something about you. Let's talk about those twists and turns. So yeah, just getting to know people beyond those icebreakers in that open mic space and just hearing people and being able to empathize and connect with people, I think is very impactful. But what about you? What are some like spaces or things that you've done to like feel connected with people and be able to connect or heal in different ways?
I definitely like the when we was going to open, like the times I would go, like that would definitely was a space for that, like of just because those was the first times that I ever like rapped in front of people, or like I've even performed some little poetry here and there. Um, quiet as it's kept. I feel like only like 6 people know that.
Trilogy
But
Sanctuary days.
yeah, the sanctuary days. That's one of the like dopest spots ever that I've ever just been at ever. I mean, just in just spoken word aside, like they got like a vegan restaurant attached to it and stuff. It was like just
Yeah.
on a little rooftop. Like I was like, dang man, this is kind of. But but yeah, like I would say another space for me that's kind of been like that is definitely like open run, like playing basketball. Honestly,
Mm.
because you in a room full of people who all kind of got the same mentality of like this is there this going on at home or this happening, but I'm here to hoop. I'm trying to bust somebody out, like, and you just have that energy and like it's fun and that also is the times that I've been the closest to fighting is on basketball courts. Like, that's just it's because you everybody's just it's just an energy in there. But I think the connectedness comes in when you know I would say like you run in, you start to go play for a while. It's people that you play with, you play against, or oh, I'm picking them up this time, or whatever. And it was people that I hooped with for years that like I forgot their names honestly.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
if I saw them at the runs, like I'm picking them up swiftly. Like, oh, that's bro. Oh yeah, we running with bro. Like, and I just I just like really, really like appreciated moments like that with sports. And then I would say something that's a little more fun. Um I would definitely say the club is one of those spaces in terms of like when it's for an event or like it's somebody's birthday or it's a celebration time or it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's so and so's birthday and like we all out here and those have been the times when I rarely want to go out like I rarely want to go outside of my apartment anymore. Like I'm a different person. I feel like I've become a lot more introverted, but I try my hardest to show up for people on times like that because I know it it's kind of like a spirit bomb type of thing that happens for
Mm.
people that don't know about Dragon Ball Z, but basically like Goku has a move where the creatures of the earth, in order to save the earth, they give a little bit of their spirit to Goku so he can basically like take out whoever's trying to destroy the earth or whatever. And it's like a super OP like move that like just. But I think that kind of happens on when you come together to celebrate someone because people kind of put all their energy towards that, like just like, and then it kind of like feeds back into itself. So celebrations, basketball, and like open mics for sure. Ways that I definitely see connectedness not happening is trying to like have like open, just unfiltered, unstructured sharing.
Yeah, it's not.
It just never works, bro. And you know me, I've done it at least. I got a good sample size. And man, did it go terribly every time. Because
It's just never.
there's no structure or like where are we going with this? Like what are we trying to take away from today? Like there's not because it just doesn't. But I think that goes back into that trauma bonding part of just like I think those are those moments where it's just like we're frankly not balancing this out.
Yeah, and what's worse than no structure, I think, is poor structure or facilitation. Because then it's just like, yo, not only is like we'd be better off just doing this ourselves and having somebody who has no facilitation skills or there's no structure to it. Like, oof, you brought up some memories with that one because I'll never forget like that. I'm not going to do all the details, but that last year at UCSD was in the Cross Cultural Center library, and I feel like all the fourth years are sitting there like, man, I'm tired of these restorative justice circles. Can y'all just duke it out and let's go get a drink at the loft after?
Because some things are that. Some things are, and it we just
Yeah.
it just is what it is. But I think like that just comes back to like the balance with it. Because if after this they was like, and after this we got concert tickets, like I would feel like, all right, let's go to the concert.
Yeah.
Talked about we gonna talk about, man. Let's go turn up, man. We coming to, but we got a festival with some food out here, and like, where's the balance? We just do like Gotta have an equal and opposite, man.
Definitely. I do want to also plus one the basketball thing though. I think especially in college because I don't know, it's something innate in me that was just like, I'm about to go hoop at Remake because at Remake, at least I felt this. I was like, no, I could be a legend at Remake. These are UCSD students. This is going to be fun. Like we run in fast breaks, we Showtime Lakers, we diamond people up, shooting shots ain't got no business shooting because it's like who gonna tell me something? It's my basketball court.
Yeah. And people didn't really want to win, so it would be. But when it was time that people wanted to win, and it was people in there hooping, it was fun. But those times were few and far between.
Just few and far between. But to transition to talk about Cool Beans as we wrap up this episode of Nat Nonsense, have a couple of shout outs for Cool Beans. First, got to do the shameless plug because the new book is here. It is right next to me. And I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't plug Full Bloom on the podcast to the applause from Andre 1K. But that is poetry book number 5. It's hardcover too. Like it's nice. I can't wait till you get in your hands so you can the cover is nice. I love this cover. But if y'all want to cop that, have a website. I've been at the website, but I redid it this past week just to be able to post a book on there. But the fourthkyler.square.site. If you follow me on Instagram, which I hope everyone listening to this podcast is actually following us on Instagram, don't just be following the podcast. But follow at the fourth Kyler. Click the link in the bio, or you can. But the book's available on the website. $25 hardcover book, 70 pages of wonderful poems and experiences, and just looking forward to getting that into people's hands. And then secondly, Black Expression. Follow them on Instagram at express_IT. That's XPRESS_IT. And the reason Black Expression is going to have the Cool Beans for today is because that is one of those spaces where people come to connect and to heal. Black Expression has the motto, if you feel it, express it. And that is just a community open mic space that recently came back. We did a couple of shows in December, and now it is going to be back every Friday at the Hamlet Coffee Shop, which is a Black-owned coffee shop in San Diego. But Black Expression is just for the community, by the community, trying to bring people together for open mics, but also for like dinners or going to the park or something, just to bring like Black folks in San Diego together, and allies. Allies are always welcome into the spaces as well. But just having that community space, having that open mic, something I'm really looking forward to just having back consistently. I'm also hosting Black Expression now. Kovu let me know 5 minutes before the first show back. He was like, "Hey, I need you to host." I'm like, "All right." I was prepared to do it, but I was like, "Dang, like let me dust off the let me dust off the hosting cap." So yeah, come down to the Hamlet Friday nights at 8 p.m. Rock with the boy on the mic. But yeah, Cool Beans for Black Expression and for Full Bloom, this latest poetry book.
Man, y'all see how he coming out the gate in 2023? Hey, I got some stuff to announce. I got some music coming out soon. But y'all see it when it comes out. I'll talk more about it. But he came out hot 2023, man. This the first day. You see how he coming out, book, hosting, got the script, bro. This is how you supposed to do it, man. I'm proud of you, bro. Proud of you, man.
Hey, that's what happens when I have time. That's where and that's kind of to give a little sneak peek into Full Bloom. Full Bloom is a flex. That is this poetry book. It's just like, yo, like I wrote this book while I was in grad school, finishing a master's program, leading a few podcasts. Like I didn't really have time to do a lot of shit I did this past year. Now I have time. So I'm looking forward to the Full Bloom of 2023.
For sure, man. And you deserve the fruits of those blooms, man.
Appreciate that. I appreciate the listeners for rocking with us this episode of Natural Nonsense. Once again, Happy New Year to you all. Make sure y'all give the podcast a like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, follow us on the podcast, and also brand new, you can now support this podcast with monies. So there is a link. I don't even think I told you this yet, but yeah, people can support Natural Nonsense now through the link in our bio. You can do a monthly subscription if you want, just to support the podcast. As little as $1 a month, you can support Nat Nonsense. So head over to the link in the bio, give us that support, and who knows, with enough supporters, maybe one day we'll be able to do a Patreon or something, give some exclusive content to the supporters. But shout out to y'all who decide to become day one supporters of Natural Nonsense in the year 2023.
For sure, because I want to get us official as a whistle, and I feel like we can do it as a group, as a team. You know what I'm saying? So let's get it, man. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of our 2022. I didn't think natural nonsense. I didn't know it was gonna be like this. I thought it was like, honestly, I thought it was gonna be me and you talking, and like, you know, but like legit people really, is listening, and I think, just is a testament to just going brick by brick. You know what I'm saying? Just getting the beaver on, or what did I say? A beaver? Yeah, getting the beaver vibes going. So just keep it going.
Let's keep it going. Make sure you share this podcast with a friend. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all next time. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.